Thanks for tuning into the Urban Scope podcast. We have to say a rest in peace to one of the legends, one of the greats in the movie game, Barry Michael Cooper. Passed away a couple of days ago, unfortunately. Now, he's known for co-writing New Jack City, Sugar Hill, and Above the Rim, all great 90s movies that took place in New York. And these movies were considered the Harlem Trilogy to most people. That all took place in some form in Harlem. Very good movies, classic movies, cult classics in the urban community, more than likely. More than, uh, so to speak. Um, New Jack City, which is in my top 10 movies of all time. Um, it had Chris Rock, and he played a very good character in there. He played it, a drug addict named Pookie. You had Wesley Snipes, who was good in there. You had a plethora of artists that were on the come up in that movie who got their start or started to ascend on that movie, and they were given the opportunity from the cast on that movie, from the movie. But Sugar Hill, I really didn't watch as much. I caught it a couple of times, just wasn't a big fan of it. But Above the Rim was one of my favorite movies as well. Um, Anytime you have Tupac, Dwayne Martin, the soundtrack was good as well, but no soundtrack was better than New Jack City out of all of these movies, because of course New Jack City's soundtrack went platinum. It had a bunch of good hits on there with Christopher Williams, Don't Wake Me. I'm Dreaming. You had the New Jack Swing era, which they said Barry Michael Cooper coined that phrase, the New Jack Swing. The New Jack Swing era was very good. It was creative. It was something that was new, something that was fresh, it was that stylish 90s period where they were coming out with all these different styles and all this different clothing. Everything that encompasses hip hop was during this era. It was just so new. We don't really have an era like that now. Everything is going back to the old days. People switch between the baggy clothes and the tight clothes. Back then they had the baggy clothes. People was wearing shirts backwards. They were wearing pants, baggy. They was wearing all these different kind of shoes and wearing hats, and they had all of this fashion. So it was a very good time for hip hop, and then for music. 90s was pretty much pivotal for everything. But nevertheless, the soundtrack for New Jack City was very good. It had mostly R&B, but it definitely had some good stuff to it. But the storytelling of New Jack City, and especially Above the Rim, I can speak for those specifically, had very similar storylines in the 90s to other movies. So when you think about A Boys in the Hood and A Cooley High, how they compare it to New Jack City and Above the Rim, they had these stories of people trying to aspire to something, specifically Above the Rim per se. Because Above the Rim definitely is compared to Boys in the Hood and Cooley High, because for the simple fact of inner city youth trying to go to college and something is derailing that, or they have to overcome some kind of obstacle. When you think about Above the Rim, Dwayne Martin's character was playing basketball, trying to get a scholarship to college, but he had to deal with the street life between what Tupac's drama was and then Marlon Wayans' drama. He had to deal with all this stuff to overcome this in his senior year to finally get a scholarship to college to Georgetown. You think about Boys in the Hood, Ricky had a scholarship to go to USC. He got shot and killed from gang members from drama that his brother Ice Cube had. When you think about Cooley High, Coach Hees had a scholarship and he was beat, to death, and he ended up dying. So it's these traumatic stories of inner city youth who trying to overcome obstacles, but are products of their environment and couldn't escape them, unfortunately. And that was the sad theme in the 90s. It was kind of like an after school special where these messages of traumatic times, to show you these pictures of traumatic times so you can be prepared for them and try to get out of your own way and try not to be a product of your environment. But doing a little research on these movies, I found some interesting things as far as like who auditioned for like New Jack City. Like Martin Lawrence reportedly tried to audition or was offered the role for Pookie, which Chris Rock played. They said he didn't take the role because at the time Robin Harris, who he played on House Party with, had passed away. So he dealt with that stuff, so he didn't take that role. And they said that Tupac's character, Tupac tried to audition for another character as well. He tried to audition for Wesley Snipes' character, I believe. So it was very interesting to see that, because I never even thought about that, and I can't picture those characters playing that role, because Chris Rock played that character so well. I couldn't imagine anyone else playing it, especially not Martin Lawrence. He never played a character like that, even to this day. But it would just be interesting to see him play a character like that, and to see how different it would have been for that movie. But just rest in peace to Barry Michael Cooper. I believe he died at the age of 66, and he wrote some very pivotal movies in the 90s, and very pivotal movies to black culture, with very important messages. And those movies had messages, strong messages for the black community specifically, and for the drug and the crack epidemic, especially during those times, coming off the late 80s and into those early 90s where it spilled over. So rest in peace to Barry Michael Cooper. And until next time, I'll see you next time.